5. It's always the moment of when it's gonna start working. There we go. So, it's great to have people joining us, and, we can just do quick introductions. I'm Allison Tate, and I write Inheriting Inequality, and Michelle,
I'm Michelle Teheux, and I write Untrickled. So
and we're
we
we're
both
here to talk about travel and airlines and summer vacations and the airline industry, oligopolies, deregulation and anything else that comes up in the scope of this conversation having to do with airline travel. We both thought it would be timely because we had both been thinking about the Spirit Airlines collapse and reading about that. And it's very clear that what's happening with airlines now and travel is going following the same K curve that we're seeing every place else. And so we had been both reading about that and thinking about that. And yeah,
we should quickly say what the K when we talk about the K-shaped economy.
yeah,
A lot of people don't know what that is. So
yeah.
if you want to add your explanation, maybe
Sure. Just, I mean, please jump in, right? Just the idea that it's
of the
become
giant K.
bifurcated, right? Where we have there's the kind of, we have people, there's becoming basically uh, things are going well for people who have a lot of money, and things are going downhill for people who have less money. And there's a widening gap. And the thing that people have been talking a lot about is that how the doesn't feel like there's a lot of middle class anymore. Middle class vibe is gone, if not the actual middle class. And that I think I wrote something about this. Everybody feels like they're upper poor now, right? Like there's a
Yeah,
whole different sense of what it means to be middle class. And that's being hollowed out in a lot of ways. And so we have people at the top and people at the bottom and a thinning middle.
yeah, and I would identify with the bottom half of the K. So I will be thinking about travel from that perspective, which is to say, I never did travel very much, but with the advent of, or not the advent, but with Spirit Airlines going out of business, it doesn't make me feel good about my chance of flying anytime soon. Excuse me, because there was an article that Alice and I both read recently, and where they talked about how when Spirit were to enter a certain market, the prices of all tickets would go down. So
Mhm.
Spirit was more of a no frills, and then but even the other airlines would drop their prices down a little bit to try to compete. And with Spirit gone, uh, we can expect airline travel to get a little bit more expensive. And so,
Mhm.
for someone who didn't have the ability to fly very often, but could save up and take a little bit of a splurge every so often, that may not be possible for people like me anymore.
Mhm. And the interesting thing is it may not be possible, and it may in fact be, because that's exactly the way that the airlines are now designing it. Um, I had found an article also that mentioned that Delta's premium cabin revenue for the first time ever in the last quarter of 2025 beat economy class. And it's very clear now that airlines are designing the travel experience for people who are purchasing the first class tickets or the premium economy. In the last couple of years, there have been a number of sort of outcries because both American and Delta, I think, have made changes. Things like you don't even get loyalty points if you fly economy, right? They've made changes to sort of access to the clubs and the lounges, and trying to give as little as possible to people flying economy, and really trying to design the travel experience around the people who are paying the big prices.
And I think that this echoes what's going on in general. We aren't making cars for poor people. We aren't building houses for poor people. Everything is catering to the upper class person. And I just recently saw a figure. I wish I knew who said this, but I think 10% of Americans are driving half of the economy, roughly.
Mhm.
And so uh, there's just a lot of markets that don't really care. Like, if you're not rich, we don't even want you as a customer. We're
Yeah.
gonna concentrate on these people right up here. If you're down here, yeah,
Mhm.
we don't really care. We don't want to sell to you.
Yeah, I mean, they're creating the conditions for this to happen and then justifying what's happening through the numbers, right? So again, Delta numbers sort of tell you the whole story. Their economy revenue fell by 7% last year, and premium revenue rose by 9%. It's, again, for the first time ever, beating economy. And that's really, that's the American economy. in flight. And, I think it's troubling for a lot of reasons, and we can kind of unpack them here. Um, One is that we deregulated airlines in 1978. There was this Airline Deregulation Act, and we did that, and fares actually did fall, and it did have some good outcomes at first. But whether or not it's actually right, the arc of deregulation usually doesn't go well, and we're at the point where maybe it's not going well. But it's also a conversation. It's not just about who gets to travel in comfort, right? Sort of like all of the things that come with traveling first class versus basic economy. It's also a big story about who can move, and in this sense, it's not just airlines, but who can move through space, right? Who can travel, who can move through space and time in a way, and at what cost. And I think I always like to think about. I think a lot about sort of the super rich. I also think about. We can talk about this too is, the ultimate in this is the big, huge surge in private flying, right? And people, net jets and things like that, people flying private, renting private. And ultimately, that's where the market is going, but it's also going in a place where that's a hugely detrimental thing, not just to the economy, but also to the environment, right? And everyone else is paying the burden. Yeah, Michael says the whole thing,
Love
no
an example.
loyalty points for the cheapest option is garbage. It's I think insane that they really will, the idea that you're only getting loyalty points if you're flying first class is just absolutely bonkers. Yeah.
I think it's interesting that, travel back in the pre-airplane days, you would have the first class passengers, and you also had a place for people like me in steerage, which,
Mm.
if you saw Titanic
I was just saying
or
we all saw Titanic and saw what happened there, right?
which
Yeah.
I push us all into,
Yeah.
uh substandard spaces. But the
Mm.
thing is, other than first class, you're already basically in steerage. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't have any room to move. I mean, we all know this. And I have never flown first class, and I can only dream of the luxury of stretching out your legs and like being able to move around a little bit. No, I mean, this is how I fly.
Right. Right. It's
Like,
like, yeah, no, and it's interesting, right? The whole environment and economy of just the airline experience, because at every point, right? Like who gets to check in first, where you go through security. I was telling Michelle and I recently, like I was in London and flying back, so I fly on Virgin, and they have an entire separate dedicated security wing, right, for what they call it upper class, which tells you something right there, right? And you go through an incredibly separate wing. Security takes 2 seconds, takes no time, and then they like drop you right off at the lounge, right? And so, I mean, all of these things that come with the flying experience. I mean, there's been so much controversy over lounges, and like, you know, now they have to have like even the exclusive lounges that not just the Delta lounge, but the Delta One lounge, or not just the, Amex lounge, but the Centurion lounge. And it's gotten to this point where like the tierification of travel has really um has really just categorized people in a way that is very visible to everyone, and therefore even more obnoxious than it sounds, right?
I did once, because I was not paying for it, get to go to the Admirals Club in Buenos Aires.
Yeah,
This was not a trip I paid for. This was not a perk that I would have qualified for.
yeah.
So I got in sort of secretly. No one said like, "Look, it's a poor person. Drive her out."
No alarms went off. They were like, "Get her." Ah,
"Ma'am, we all you do not belong here." No,
right.
so I got to see what that was like. And I
Mhm.
must pretty nice. On the same trip, at the end of that flight, also got to go into the one in New York, which was fine, but the one in Buenos Aires, if if possible, I would have lived within that lounge for the rest of my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah,
They
you're like, "I
had
don't need
top
to get on the
shelf
plane.
liquor,
I'll just stay here."
all kinds of wine. I was able to take a really luxurious shower there, which
Uh,
because I hadn't, been able to do that while
yeah,
traveling,
yeah.
that was like the shower of my life. I mean, they brought out this pile of towels like
Mm.
this, wrapped up in, like, ribbons, and I'm like,
You're like,
"Okay."
"Whoa, wow." Yeah.
And, like, there was ice cream, there was beer, there was top shelf, there was no bottom shelf liquor, there was really nice wine, there was a buffet, Oh my god, what did they not have? There was everything. I have never been in luxury in my life, and, that was it. I got no more.
Yeah.
But it's
Um,
like, when you contrast that with the experience that I normally get, it was, it's hard to describe just how different that experience was than what I'm used.
yeah, Pisces and Motion said advertising targets, it's Virgin, right? Advertising targets upper class with the environments they show. Absolutely, right? Actors all look like upper class people, not working class. And I mean, maybe it's just, again, maybe it's just a UK British thing, but like just calling it actually like upper class is a little bit like, it seems like a little bit too much on the nose to me, and they're like, oh, are you flying upper class? It's just a little too much. And I think part of it that's interesting, I think this taps into another conversation that a lot of people are having is that there's the performance of class that we see, right? Like you can perform class because you're going into the lounge or you're not going to the lounge. You get to be the first people on the plane, or you have to be in, you know, zone 5, and they're like, we might not have room for your bags. Like, we'll see. Like, we'll just see when we get there, right? So you're performing it. You perform it through security, right? Because now you have things like Clear,
Mhm.
and then you Clear Plus, or all the different things and all the different ways that you can like pay to get out of security lines. And it's all designed all designed obviously to make money for the for the various companies, but it's all designed to make things for the traveler, if you have money, as frictionless as possible, right? And that's something that people have been talking a lot about, is the sort of the big push to make life easy for people with money if you can afford it, and making things frictionless. And that's what they're trying to do, but it's a very public frictionless. So a lot of times there's a lot of people that have things that and advantages and privileges that we just don't know and we don't see them, but traveling makes it really obvious.
Well, that was a big eye opener to me to see just how deluxe what are those that was if there are any that are more luxurious, I have not been to them. I think that was had to be pretty close to the summit,
Mm,
but, and it was far better than the same club was in New York City, which you would have expected. I'm not saying it wasn't nice, but they did not have, like, the endless options. But, it's true, like, in a lot of travel situations and non-travel situations, if you have a little bit more money, you can purchase
mm,
a little bit better experience, a little bit less hassle, a little bit more luxury, maybe less waiting, that that's available in a lot of different parts of life.
mhm.
Uh,
Well, even with the economy now, like, they've changed it, right? Like, there's basic economy, and, like, there's, like, 3 different kinds of economy now, and, like, one, I don't even know if you get a bag. One you have, like, a
you
slight
get a
ability to move, and, like, one you might get, like, a glass of water or Diet Coke. But, like, even within economy now, they've tiered it, right?
well, and I haven't flown for several years, and it was a terrible experience the last time I did fly because, we got I had my grandchildren with me,
Mhm,
and it was their first time flying, and I was sitting with my grandson who was, at the time, probably about 4 years old, and I we were rushing down the runway, and I said, "Get ready, buddy. You're gonna feel this little clunk when the wheels go up, and we'll be up in the air."
mhm,
The pilot throws on the brakes, and, like, we stop, and they said, "Yeah, basically, the check engine light just came on, and we're gonna go back to the airport."
mm,
And there we for, like, 14 hours, I think.
mhm.
Until, like, the hours of the morning when they gave us a hotel room where we took a brief nap and then flew out actually the next day. That was a great introduction to flying, and that
Great.
that happened to everybody on the plane, 1st or 2nd class or whatever, but
Mhm.
I have a feeling that other people probably were found a seat a lot sooner than we were. So,
Yeah.
uh, that wasn't fun, but I must say my grandkids thought it was awesome because they were allowed to be
Yeah.
on their tablet unlimited, and they were
Right.
able to eat food and soda they wanted because we just wanted to keep them happy. And, we adults were grumbling constantly, but they thought it was great, like, "Flying is fun, you get to be on your tablet
Right.
nonstop." We found it less fun.
Yeah, they're like, "This is wonderful." Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's like it's an odd public space, right, where it's very visible to see who has what and who doesn't. So it's a unique type of, like, performance, which is an interesting thing, right? Because I think a part of this, I guess, both, like, culturally and legally, there's a question of whether or not travel is a public good that everyone should have access to, right? And I mean, the Department of Justice, they blocked Spirit and JetBlue from merging on the idea that that was not, that was too much. And then Spirit, collapses. And the
Right.
whole idea was is to if the whole idea is to keep well, if the idea were to keep budget travel available to people, I don't think that we're actually going about it the right way. And the DOJ is certainly going about it a strange way. But that can be said of a lot of things. And I don't think anyone thinks anymore that the point is actually to provide basic goods to people at a reasonable price. But it
I
does beg the question of whether or not travel is a good, right? Is it a public good like parks and air and like the right to travel? Does that include access to budget travel?
Well, I think we can think of it in a little bit different way because, so any of you who may have read my piece from a few weeks ago called "The Poor Do Not in Fact Live Like Kings," because there's an argument that the poor today live better than kings because we have antibiotics and cars and air conditioning
Sure.
my argument is don't don't compare a rising level of technology makes
Right.
comfort better for everybody. That does not mean that some people should be living like this 2026 and the poor people should live in a hut
Right.
with a fireplace and can go down to the river to get their water. I mean, we reject that. We think that like technology, as it improves, it should lift everybody up.
Mhm.
And uh, yes, the rich should be able to afford all sorts of luxuries. I mean, if you have a bigger diamond ring, that's I don't care. If your clothes are designer and mine are this, I don't care. But when it comes to things like medicine or basic infrastructure, I think you can make an argument that we all contribute to society. We should all benefit from society. And unlike in the past, where if you got a letter via Pony Express saying that your brother had died 3 months ago, and that was very sad, and there was nothing you could do about it. Nowadays, because we have, quick communications, you find out your brother is very ill, and if you want to get to his bedside and at least have a chance to say goodbye,
Mhm.
it's ridiculous to say in my mind, it's ridiculous to say, "Well, if you're rich, of course you can, like, jet set right over to his hospital bed and say your goodbye. But if you're poor, you'll have to get on a Greyhound bus, and, if you're lucky, you'll make it to the funeral." We don't need to live this way. We don't have to make these choices, and it should be somewhat affordable,
Mhm.
not because everybody needs to be able to fly to Disneyland or to wherever, but also because we do live in, a world where this is very, very doable,
Mhm.
and there's no reason why we should just make it a luxury experience for the rich when a
Mhm.
lot of us are willing to fold ourselves up like a human origami piece
Mm.
and fly in our little steerage because we're just trying to get somewhere. We
Yeah.
may not be taking a a grand trip. We might just need to get to a funeral or something like that, and why shouldn't we be able to?
Mhm. I mean, an interesting question I would say. Michael says, I've seen suggestions that JetBlue could have gone under had it successfully acquired Spirit along with its debts and then had to navigate the volatile fuel markets. Yeah, it's an interesting question of what could have happened with JetBlue and Spirit. And like, I guess we'll never know, but it could have gone a lot of ways. I think that's right. And Pisces Emotion says, I would rather have fast trains like Europe than fly. That would be wonderful to have actual, like, infrastructure and a great train system and to invest in infrastructure, like, 100% agree on that. Yeah.
I love train travel. I'm married to a Dutch guy. I've seen train travel that works well. I live in Central Illinois. I live near Peoria, Illinois, which is one of the bigger cities in Central Illinois, and it does not have a train station.
Mm,
Why? I Somebody dropped the ball years ago. I don't know why, but for me to get on a train, I have to drive at least an hour to
mm,
get on a train to get to it's about a 3-hour drive to Chicago, to downtown Chicago from my house, roughly 3 hours. If I wanna take the train, which I love to do,
mhm,
I have to drive an hour first. That really doesn't make a lot of sense. I occasionally do it for fun. We did it
mhm.
with friends for, an occasion. I've done
Oops.
is going on? Is that my phone?
Sorry, that was me.
Yeah, oh, sorry. Uh, anyway, like, it's fun. I love to ride the train, but, like, in my case, if I take the train to Chicago, we have to stop at so many train stations for much smaller cities than where I am from, so that's a little bit odd. But, so you aren't really saving any time because you're making stop after stop after stop after stop. So it's really about the experience of like enjoying the train travel novelty. It's not a fast way to travel in my area.
Yeah.
Now, in Europe, yes. Oh God, train travel in Europe is fantastic.
Is. The
We
thing the
have
other woman just said, it says, "I hate to say it, we're about to be in a world where fuel of all kinds is going to be scarce," which is also true, right? Flying and buses are soon gonna be out of reach for many, and when we don't have diesel fuel, we won't even have food at the grocery store. True, right? So, like, we're thinking about this just in terms of airline, but it's also, right, the problems, fuel problems, right, are gonna hit all kinds of transportation and travel mechanisms.
Well, it used to be to get somewhere, you think about what it was like to travel if you go back in time, and the further back in time you go, the longer and more miserable travel was.
Right.
And we sort of take it for granted now that unless we are the very poorest of the poor, we could get on a plane and go somewhere, and we could
Mhm,
be there in a relatively short time, depending on just how long of a flight we're talking about.
mhm,
But maybe for all but the richest of the rich, that's going to be out of reach, at least temporarily, until or unless we figure out our
mhm,
energy issues. I don't know if we're going to do that. We had everything just fine, and then we decided to go ahead and go to war. And now
mhm,
lot of people don't realize how long the pipeline is from when it is, when it first comes from the ground to when it is available for your gas tank, but it's many months.
mhm,
And it's my understanding that we are still using the gas from pre-war days.
mm.
So yes, we're paying more, we're paying a lot more, but it's still available because it was already in the pipeline, so to speak. Uh, when there isn't as much in the pipeline, uh, I'm not an expert on this, but it doesn't sound like it's gonna be a good time for any of us.
Right. Yeah. Some thinking other woman says, of course, if the U.S. would keep its own oil instead of selling to other countries, this might not be as bad. But nobody in this idiot administration is thinking about anything but the ballroom. But the ballroom is going to keep everybody safe. Oh, it's going to be
I
great.
can't wait for the ballroom. The ballroom is gonna be
Ah,
fantastic.
that
I'm gonna
ballroom,
there.
safest place ever. Wonderful. Yeah, I guess I'm interested in the question of the whole fact of 1978 deregulation was something that made air travel available to people that didn't have access before. And it does seem to me like we're now at a point where regulation needs to come back in, and and airline travel and maybe other forms of travel too need to be regulated in again in a way to actually now do what happened in 78, right? Like make accessibility great again, like bring
Mhm.
back access to people. And that was what originally happened with deregulation. But again, like we've gone to a point where it's not working. Well, it's working in the way that it does. But I mean, we have, what was it's like 70%, I think I mentioned the 70% of um, all the profits go to four companies. And, basically the DOJ has approved all kinds of mergers. And is it like now time for the something different to happen, right? Is it now time for this to be like quasi public infrastructure and to get the market out of it, in uh, the market dominance out of it? And also just pointing out that a lot of ownership stakes in plane companies now are private equity groups, which we always talk
They
about where private equity is everywhere. So just so you don't think that they're not in planes, they are there.
private equity, I'm not a fan of private equity. I was a fan of Lena Khan, and I would like to see her,
Mhm,
unleashed. Uh, we just keep letting companies get bigger and bigger and bigger,
mhm,
and that capitalism claims to be in favor of competition. It sure doesn't look like it to me. It
yeah,
looks to me they like to have just a few people controlling everything.
right.
Uh, an easier example than airline is food. We all buy food.
Mhm,
And you think you've got, if you look in your grocery cart, you think like, I've bought from 30 different companies. No, you probably bought from like three companies
right.
because there's just a few agri giants owning all kinds of different labels. And so
Mhm,
you look at three different kinds of yogurt. They're probably all made by the same person.
right.
Eyeglasses? there's like one or 2 companies that
right?
make almost all glasses, so that's
Yeah.
why if from some place like Zinni or Warby what is it, Warby Parker?
Warby Parker,
Um,
yeah,
these are Zinni glasses.
yeah,
Um, they save you dramatically because you're not working from one of the very, very few people who have a monopoly.
yeah. I mean, that's the funny thing. I mean, it's like this is clearly a situation where, there should be at least some antitrust inquiry. I mean, like BlackRock, I think, owns shares across various airlines. And again, there's only four really big ones anymore. And BlackRock, I think, owns shares, in all of them, or at least several of them. So there's no coordination, right? For like antitrust, you want some coordination, but there is clearly concentrated ownership. Like that part is not, is indisputable that there's concentrated ownership in the airlines, and that's something that it's part of what's happening here, right? And I think it's what you said is interesting. It's like it's supposed to be about the markets. And it is funny to me that sort of late stage capitalism is it's really just a social welfare state, right, for corporations. And it's really not about the market anymore.
No. And if you don't have much competition, you can get away with a lot more, obviously. And, I see it in here, I thought Southwest included checked bags of their tickets. They used to, it's my understanding that they don't anymore.
But there says,
My under
yeah, not Pisces Emotion says not anymore. I mean, they're literally just getting rid of everything that they used to provide for economy. I mean, it's you just look at all the different things, and I'm always surprised now by how many actual different when you go to Delta to book a ticket or wherever, um, and you just look at the different categories available, and there are many more than there used to be, and there are things that to me, I never realized that you could actually book in a category where you wouldn't get a bag checked, and that's very, very, like, now it's a thing.
put all your clothes on, put them all on,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, right.
3 or 4 dresses or pantsuits or whatever,
Mhm.
just put them all on and stuff
Yep.
all your pockets, your toiletries,
Mhm. Yeah.
do those little I'm like, "They wouldn't give me any luggage, I'm just wearing every single thing I need for my 2-week trip."
Yeah. And I looked at the private jet numbers. I think private jet, rental and ownership both are, like, quite significantly up, and private jet use, I think, activity is up by about 10% from at least from 2020, which is and it just keeps going up, and, both the rent like I said, rental, like net jets, but also purchase, I spend a lot of time looking at random websites for, like, high wealth people and families. And the number of sort of like ads that they have for financing both planes and yachts is enormous. Like the information out there about like how to get yourself a yacht or how to get yourself a plane. And they're like, we'll make it happen for you, right? We'll make it happen for you if the right yacht becomes available or the right plane becomes available, let us know. Give us a call.
Well, not to brag, but my husband and I are seriously considering buying a used kayak. We're thinking about it.
There you go. Just make sure that you don't sell any securities to get the money. Just make sure to go do some securities-backed lending, and you will be okay.
Oh, but here is a hypothetical question, what has gone wrong in a society when simultaneously some people can buy or rent a jet and some people cannot scrape up the
Right.
cheapest ticket with the least upgrades, with no upgrades?
Yeah,
That would seem like, that would seem to me like, things might have gotten a little bit out of hand.
yeah. Yeah, Pisces Emotion said, "The airlines are concerned about jet fuel costs and availability, yet I have not seen anything limiting private jets." Right? I mean, private jets are one of the bigger users, right? They're in terms of emissions, they're one of the clearest, problems, like yachts and private jets are some of the clearest problems in terms of emissions, but also use, and that seems like a really good first place to go, right? If we're thinking about, regulation. I agree. Yeah. So, yeah, your
So, yeah,
question, right? Like, what's wrong? What's wrong? It's a choice, right? It's a policy choice that we've made to let the rich get richer and to let companies design their products around catering to the rich because that's where they're making money. And so people will just say, again, like we go back to that Delta statistic that, that now premium flights are bringing in more money than economy. And people will just say, I mean, maybe not anyone like that we know, but like people say, well, that's just the market working, right? That's just the market working the way it can't do anything about the market. And it's like, well, that's obviously not true.
That's not true, and, the thing is, we still live in a society. I do not participate in the market the same way that, an ultra wealthy person does, but people like me are still part of society.
Mhm.
We work, we consume, we vote. We're participating,
Yeah.
and we are not allowed to have any of the fruits of, participation.
Mm.
Well, in history, we have seen that that never works out really well.
Yeah.
If you decide to, like, put all the wealth toward just a very few and everybody else is expected to make
Yeah.
do on us, and, like, true, I mean, there's bread in my house. It's not a matter of I'm in any danger of starving to death or ending up, hopefully, on the street anytime soon, but again, we're not living in the 1700s where it was common for people to literally starve to death. We live in a society where we have plenty of food.
Mm.
We have plenty of housing. We have plenty of every resource basically that we need. We've
Mhm.
just decided to
We've just
reserve them for a very few people.
Yeah, we've just made decisions about what to sell to whom and what to allow, in terms of how we sell things and how we regulate industries. And, as I said, people always say, well, it's just the market, but it's not, right? There's no, that's a false, it gives us the idea of a false neutrality. That's really, it's a form of gaslighting, really. It's a form of gaslighting and glossing over the massive regulatory structure that supports certain companies and gives them subsidies. I myself would like to see like major tech. I mean, I don't know that anybody should actually like own super yachts or anything like that, but see massive taxes on the use, which would
In New York,
hopefully deter people from using them with quite the frequency, but at least they would be paying back something into a collective tax base.
well, I understand that in New York City, people who have a secondary home that they don't even live in
Yep.
are now paying a really high tax.
Yeah, the pied-à-terre tax. Thank you, Adami. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and I don't live in New York City, so I'm not following this closely as if,
Well, neither do the people with pied-à-terres, so
yeah,
that's
I
all. No.
have one of those in New York City for some reason, but, this is a level of wealth that, they've gotten because they live in this society. They didn't Nobody becomes that rich totally on their own efforts. If you're that wealthy, it's because
Mhm.
you've benefited from all the infrastructure of
Yeah,
society. Be
absolutely.
I don't care. I'm not saying we all have to sit around and eat gruel all day. I'm completely fine with other people having nicer homes and higher level of luxuries, but I do think that there is a certain standard which is going to rise over time as technology and things like that advance, and it should be a little bit more fairly, I don't wanna say provided because I'm not asking for a handout, I'm asking for the opposite of a handout. I'm asking for us not to hand out extreme privileges to a few. I
Right.
just want everybody to have a decent standard of living, and a decent standard of living in 1200, and 1300, and 1500, and 1970, and 2026 are all different.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, the whole idea of a handout, right, is we give handouts of all kinds, right? And the only
Oh,
ones that
yeah.
we actually like pathologize are the ones that we give to people who need them the most, right? We pathologize handouts to people who are living in and around poverty and who need government assistance. We give handouts of all kinds to other people. We give lots of handouts to corporations. We give handouts to high wealth families and individuals. We give handouts to middle class people through mortgage deductions. We give out lots of handouts, but the only ones that we, really penalize people for are the ones where people actually need it. This is
But
actually so Pisces in Motion says people in my rural area have to depend on helicopters for medical emergencies. And I worry about how hospitals are going to handle the extra costs. I had to be med flighted out to a hospital an hour and a half away, saved my life. So what happens if the hospitals can't do that?
that's another whole that would be another whole great topic. So I used to work for this advertising agency that, one of our concentrations was on, medicine. We
Mhm.
did a lot of, say, healthcare. We did a lot of, advertising and PR for medical centers, and we further, I would say, concentrated a lot on the smaller rural hospitals. That's kind of
Mm,
like who we were. So we would design their websites and do a lot of the different things for them. When you would get a letter from the CEO, someone like me probably wrote that. I just made it up. So
uh,
these rural hospitals, they really depend on federal reimbursements. And because you can't make a lot of money running a hospital, which is very expensive to run in a smaller town. I
mhm,
am lucky that there's a hospital so close to me that if I weren't an emergency situation, I could walk there. I mean, if you need an emergency room, you probably don't want to walk there, but it literally is like a pleasant walk from my house.
yeah,
And and in the next big city, Peoria, Illinois, they've got a couple of really world class hospitals and a medical school. So if I had, some, I'm an ambulance across the river away from some of the best medical care that you could get anywhere.
mhm,
But there's other hospitals that there isn't another hospital for a long distance away,
yeah,
and a lot of these hospitals stopped delivering babies.
mhm,
They have they can't do a lot of, I mean, if you show up there in the middle of a heart attack, they can do a little bit to stabilize you and then
yeah,
put you in an ambulance and send you to a bigger medical center, and if that isn't there at all, there's no one to stabilize you and send you to the next place.
mm,
The only hospitals are the great big hospitals. This is this is not good, and the funny thing is,
oh,
this doesn't just affect this doesn't just affect the poor. It's not that wealthy people don't live in remote areas. Some do. They live in remote, lovely homes.
mhm,
And should they have a sudden medical emergency, I don't know what they think they're gonna do if they're gonna be expected to take a flight, because that's still gonna take longer than a short ambulance ride a few
yeah,
miles away to a local
yeah,
hospital.
yeah,
These are things that economy of scale is fine with some businesses, but not hospitals.
mhm,
And not for a lot of things. So that's another whole topic that you should look at, because it doesn't make sense to depend upon life flights for
yeah,
people who are in labor or having a heart attack.
right,
That should be where only if you're like hiking out in the crazy remote woods
right,
and you have an emergency, should you, or something like that.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it goes back to your I mean, it's a different variation of your a comment before about who gets to do things like go to weddings or go to funerals. This is obviously like a different situation because it's life and death, but who has access to travel for matters, social, family obligations, work obligations, health necessities, right? All of those different reasons for which you may need to travel, and who has access to that. And again, that's a I think there's a very strong argument that I think we both would agree with, that those are things that should be accessible to everybody at either provided by the state, right, or at a low price point where everyone can access them, because they are sort of fundamental things that we think of as parts of what it means to be, a citizen somewhere. Is that you have the right, you have the ability to travel for necessary hospital or emergency medical treatment. You have the right to travel and the ability to travel, the access to travel to, for all of these various different reasons.
We have arranged our society in such a way that travel is more necessary than it was in the past.
Mhm.
Um, at one time, most people still lived close to where their family did. And so all your grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins were probably within a fairly short distance. And one of the reasons why people feel comfortable taking a job on the other side of the country after they get out of college is because they know
Yeah.
I can fly to see my mom and dad or
Mm,
whoever.
mhm.
And we make it so that a flight, that's like once or twice on a lifetime experience. Then you no longer feel comfortable moving far away. Then you no longer feel comfortable taking what might be a really good opportunity for you.
Yeah.
I don't think that's in society's best interest for everybody to feel like they've got to stick close to home because they'll never
Mhm.
be able to come back home once they move away.
Right.
I
Paisy said many wealthy seniors in my area are starting to move to cities because of the medical services. I can see why. Um, Another question, sort of a little related but a little bit different, is so what do you think that, given that a lot of people, I think, especially this summer, we don't know what will happen long term. So many thoughts about that, but that's for another day. But we don't know what will happen this summer. Do you think people will not travel? Do you think people will stay travel but stay closer to home? Or do you think, again, this is actually like another one of those sort of maybe it all fits beautifully together for the people who benefit. Do you think people will still travel, but just put the extra expense on a credit card and think about it later? And if people have thoughts, like, we'd love to
There's
hear
gonna be
everybody in the chat. Like, are you thinking about summer plans differently? Like, how does this make you think about travel in the near future?
we have, made our backyard a lovely oasis so we can spend
Oh, I
more
saw
time
that picture. It's very attractive. I love it.
that's one of our things, we were thinking about doing something special a couple years ago, and we were looking around at, not major vacations, but like a weekend somewhere or something, and we looked at the amenities of various places where we would stay, and we thought, we could actually kind of do a version of this at home,
Mhm,
and, I mean, I love to travel, but it's not really in the cards for us right now, and we spend we spend a lot of time in our backyard. We entertain a lot in our backyard, and if
mhm.
you didn't see the picture I posted yesterday, because we were doing a ton of yard work yesterday, I dug a goldfish pond. My husband built a
Very nice.
over it. He built a little covered area on the deck with
Yeah,
a he built his own furniture. He built a treehouse. I mean, we've really got a nice backyard, and we did it all on cheap.
very charming. You'll have to
We
invite us all to have a a live there. It's charming.
My husband knows how to do fairly decent level, I would say, actually an excellent level of woodworking, and he likes doing it, and he has, access to free wood, free scrap wood. He's done amazing things with the free scrap wood. He's always building something.
Mhm.
Uh, or what I say I'd like to do, he's always like, "I could make that." And "You don't have time. You're like 30,000 years behind of all the projects you intend to do. We might have to buy something ready-made." But the man, like, if I say that we need a chair, he'll go out and build a chair.
Mhm.
He's that type of guy. But, that's kind of our thing is, like, we're just gonna stick to close to home,
Yeah.
till or unless the world changes a little bit.
Mhm. And I imagine there are a number of people who are gonna do that and say, like, we don't need a vacation where we have to fly somewhere this year, or but again, like you said, then maybe there are people who have to fly or feel like they have to fly for a family obligation or things like that, where they're gonna be paying higher prices. Michael says, coming back to loyalty points, I'm fly American mostly when I travel. I'm planning a personal trip to New York City and feel captured. Like you have to pick the higher tier option just so you can keep earning points, which I totally get. And that's exactly what they want you to do. And I do it also. So I can't say anything, but like that's, you're right. It's like they're smart. That's the incentive structure they're providing. I'm curious, like, too, about like work things. So, like, I've booked a number of flights for work to go to conferences and, the costs are much higher than usual, obviously. And I wonder, like lots of companies and universities and employers, right, are gonna be paying higher costs, for people's travel, and if they will basically stop paying for it or, if people will be traveling less, and it's interesting because I think a lot of at least, from I'll just stick with, like, the employer I know, like universities, a lot of things people have said, "You probably don't need to travel like that. Can't they just do it on Zoom or things like that?" And so it's an interesting question of whether a lot of this work-based travel will actually persist in ways that it has been doing. I mean, COVID always already changed it a lot, and people started doing a lot more things on Zoom, but this will also, I think, amplify those changes, and people might not be willing to travel for a shorter meeting or a conference or things like that.
And, I was never in a position to do a lot of travel for I was a small town journalist. I didn't really need to do a lot of travel. But I will say, we did do a lot of workshops and seminars and, like,
Mhm.
con and things like that. And it isn't just that you need the information, it's that you need to make the contacts, and you need to talk to people, and you need to commiserate about the industry and,
Yeah.
people you might eventually work for or with later on. Like, to me, personally, that was always the value of going to these things. It's
Mhm.
not the keynote speaker was necessarily gonna be a although the keynote speaker for one of these one time was Barack Obama. So, that's one I was glad I got to go to. That was
Mhm.
long president.
Yeah.
But, that's something it wouldn't have been very impressive if I said, "One time I was on a Zoom and Barack
Right.
Obama was on it,"
Yeah,
but I
and
was
it
able to be in a small room with him. That was pretty cool.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's one thing, it's a like I said, COVID already changed a lot of it, but, I mean, there's nothing academics like more than a conference, and not it might change the shape of what those looks like. I think it's gonna change, the prices and, not just the prices, but, I think even once if there is right, if, prices go back down, like, companies are still like, these airline companies are still now going to stick with this structure, right? They have like figured out that they can charge people the prices they can charge them for premium flight. They've figured out that that's where their money is. And so it's like no matter what happens with availability, right, of oil, they're going to keep charging these and they're going to keep going with the the lots of services for the premium passengers and really giving the minimal possible to other travelers. So I think it's going
Well,
to continue no matter what. And I mean, it's going to reshape the way people vacation. It's going to reshape again the way people work, I think. But it's interesting because it's also a time, when you see on social media like so much travel and like the glamorization of people's like traveling lives at the same time that it's becoming unaffordable for so many people.
so what might happen though is, and I have no idea whether this is the case, but it might happen that a lot of businesses say, "Get it done in a Zoom or
Mhm.
don't do it. I'm not paying for this." And
Yep.
if that happen, that would trigger the airlines to say, "Well, crap, without the deep pockets of big corporations, I guess we're gonna have to woo back the pores and offer a few
Mhm.
more deals." It would be extremely interesting the next time you're flying to say, "Ding, ding, ding. Hey, everybody. Could you, starting with you there in the front, can we all stand up one at a time and say how much we paid for our ticket?"
Right.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Right.
Because that's something that if there's like, probably half the people there got a really good deal and half probably overpaid, but nobody knows that because you don't know what other people paid.
Yeah.
And it's not like walking into the store and a gallon of milk costs what it costs. I mean, imagine if some people, and you do actually see this when you're ordering things online, but if you're like going into a store and buying directly, we're all paying the same price for things. And it would
Mhm.
be amazing if like, excuse me, you have to pay more for this gallon of milk because we know you can afford it.
Right.
And,
They're like, "We'll
and
give you a
forget
free napkin with that milk, that gallon of milk, or a free
like
pink
that
bow
you're on
around it."
a platinum dairy club. So
Right.
3 gallons, your fourth gallon comes with free yogurt or something. I don't know.
Right.
Is a little bit ridiculous because you can't just say how much it costs to fly. It depends so much, and it's just almost impossible. I mean,
Mhm.
granted, I don't fly a lot, but each time I do, it's so frustrating because it seems like there's just a million different ways that affect it. And I usually just I have a deal with a friend who always has frequent fire miles coming out his ears because of where he works and so forth,
Yeah.
and also very savvy. He enjoys doing this. We've been known to work with him, like, he'll grant people he grants all kinds of people miles in return for,
Mhm.
like, "Yeah, we do that thing around my house. Here, I'll just, like, give you these frequent flyer miles." He sent one of his girlfriend's sons to, South America just because the
Mhm.
kid well, not kid, said he'd like to go, and my friend was like, "Well, I've got 9,000,000,000 frequent flyer miles. Here, I'll just peel off a few and
Right.
give them to you."
Yeah.
Yeah, it becomes a game, which some people enjoy and other
Right.
people part of it.
That's the other thing, right? There is a gamification, like, using points and using all of the, like, reward systems, and, I mean, like Michael said, they've created it in very smart ways where people want to keep accumulating, and, of course, like, you don't wanna lose all of your points, and you wanna keep doing things, and I don't know about you, but, like, my social media feeds are full of people who are like, "I'm staying at the Ritz-Carlton, and I spent $1," and, like, telling you how with all different types of points, right? They've gotten, all sorts of, I'm flying first class to Dubai and I paid 20, $200, whatever it is. Um, so there's all of these incentive ways for people to think that they're going to be flying to Dubai for $200. And, the reality of that is not as clear, right?
My meat feed would be more like people saying, like, "I drove to the next state in my 20-year-old car, and
It only cost me a dollar for the points.
I don't even worry about the points because I figure it's gonna be so long before I could fly again that
Yeah.
I just even think about that. My points go towards cash back. They
Yeah.
don't go one
I mean, it's the
card
same
that
with all kind of point systems, right? Even like the ones for like cashback for gas or whatever it is, right? Like, I mean, the point system like has just tapped into our entire, and this is a kind of a different episode or a different conversation, but tapped into the gamification structure of everything that we like to continue getting the points and seeing what kind of rewards we can get. And maybe I am going to be in the like golden dairy club, right? And get my fourth gallon of milk free and get to go through the express lane.
a few years ago, there were all these women who it was usually women, who would, do super couponing, and they would
Mhm.
plot
Right,
and they would their coupons, and they'd have this huge, um, bags and bags of groceries that they got for $3 or something,
right.
and but mostly that was if I in my opinion, most of that, though, was stuff I would never buy because the stuff I usually buy doesn't ever have coupons, like, a head of lettuce. You don't really see too often, a coupon lettuce or your basic ingredients. It's usually for prepared foods, and I don't buy a lot of those anyway, so coupons never did me a lot of good, but it strikes me there's a lot of parallels between somebody who would plot and clip and, look for a way to get the
Mhm.
best possible on foods, and a much wealthier person who is like, "I've got these points from this card, and I can do this and this and this, and I can take this flight,
Well, it's funny,
arrange to make."
that's now actually an industry in and of itself, right? Telling people how to make money off of their airline points, right? It's like if you look at any of these accounts, you have a little like video clip of somebody flying in this beautiful like first class pod and having a glass of champagne and they're like, DM, put your name in the DM, in the messages and I'll send you this for a small cost and you too can, be on the next plane to Paris. And so like not only is there the industry of the airline right, who has made it such that you have basically like a really terrible option for flight or premium. There are now also this entire industry of people out there, who are sort of like personal finance, I don't whatever you wanna call them, gurus, influencers, whatever you wanna call them, but the entire personal finance industry of people telling you, like, "This is what you need to do with the points," and, you're supposed to have, like, 17 cards, and they're like, "Don't worry, it's not a problem to have 17 cards," and you're like, "Hmm, okay, well,
Well,
okay, sure," right? But, like, you're gonna do all the different things because you gotta get, like you gotta use the Delta card for this, and then you gotta use this card for that, and you have to, like, use your Hilton branded card for this, and so the airlines have all tapped into that, right? And it's like when we go back to the points in the lounges, right? If you have a Delta card, you're gonna earn more points more quickly, you're gonna have more access to the lounges, and then there's, like, 5 different tiers of Delta cards. So it's a whole 'nother industry to, like, figure out how to get the most you can out of, like, a terrible system.
maybe that's people accept the terrible systems, they think they're going to find a deal, and I can't bear the thought about playing that game. I just I hate that stuff. I really hate that stuff. I don't wanna play that. I would
Oops, sorry.
I would really like to be able to say, like, "It looks like this cost is about this much, and I do or don't have enough money for it," and then, maybe I'll pick, like, a cheaper time of year level or, you know, I've got some fairly simple way of making points work, maybe I'd be willing to do it, but I don't wanna I I don't wanna play any of those games, and I seems like now you almost have to, and if you don't, you feel like you're getting ripped off.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, right? I think there's the within the people who are, like, looking to fly in the premium space, there's again, it would be really interesting if you went into, like, the first class on the next flight to London and asked, like, what different people paid, right? And, like, there's somebody who just bought the flight and just they were like, "I paid $10,000." There's somebody who's, recording themselves, like, drinking the champagne saying, "I paid $200." There's somebody who upgraded the desk who just paid $800, right? I mean, it's a completely across the board system, but there is this idea that you too can be there if you just play your cards right, and I mean, I literally do mean cards, right? If you play your credit cards right, you
Yeah.
can be there.
I have a friend who, his aunt used to I can't remember now, but it doesn't matter. She was a flight attendant back when flight attendants were stewardesses, and she had done it for a long time, and so
Back in the
it
days when sexual discrimination and gender-based forms of hostile work environment were totally fine and had no legal claim.
In fact, that was a fun perk for male travelers.
Yeah.
You add all the bottoms you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so she had had a long career doing working for the airline, and I think that she had I think that her first husband before he died was high up in whatever airline. I don't know all the details, but as a result, my friend was able to fly first class all the time, and he would pack a bag, and if they said, "Oh, well, there isn't a first class available for free
Mhm.
on this," he would say, "Where could I go?" And so one
Yeah.
time he going to a completely different continent than where he'd originally planned, just because he would go wherever he could get a free last minute
Mhm.
first class ticket. So he traveled first class all over the world
Yeah.
without paying any of it. But sometimes he would have to change his plans at the last minute.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole other part
Very
about
last
the airline industries that, we can cover a different time or in a different topic, but I mean, just so I just remember when I took employment discrimination in law school, one of the first cases we read was a Pan Am case, and basically what the flight attendants, right, called at the time stewardesses, had to do. Um, and, I mean, they had to be weighed every week. They had to weigh in. They had to eat certain things, right? The uniforms were a certain way. I mean, it was, obviously, if you got married or pregnant, you couldn't keep your job. I mean, it was.
there was a
I think
famous
there used to be a TV show about Pan Am, the flight attendants. That's a different.
that wrote a thing. God, this is going way back, but it was about a woman who did have a job as a quote unquote stewardess. And
Hmm.
she things like there was an appearance counselor. So if you got a little pimple on your face,
Yeah.
you found it until you could finally get that pimple not noticeable.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
like this was so clearly just, for the male traveler's pleasure to have
Yeah.
beautiful women, beautiful young women.
Hmm.
And the last time I did fly, like I said, I don't fly often and it's been a while, but the last time I flew, I was really happy to see there was such a variety of people, ages, and body types.
Hmm.
Uh, People who were everywhere on the attractiveness spectrum.
Yeah.
Why should you have to be a model material to serve drinks and to do, have first aid training in case, because
Hmm.
basically they're here to serve you, and they're also there in case of an emergency to
Right.
safely get off the plane. Like,
Yeah.
they're not there to be beautiful people for you to look at. I mean, it's
I
been
mean, this brings us back to the. I mean, it does actually. It brings us back to the very place where we started, which is a good place to end for us. Why did they have to be that way? Because they understood who their customers were, right? Lookism, obviously, and they understood that they were catering to a specific clientele, which was basically white men with money who felt entitled to look at women in their travel, right? And so it makes me curious, like, that particular form of discrimination it's not obviously gone, but it's like it's been changed, and it's been modified through employment discrimination. Um, but right, if we go back to a time where travel is for elite travelers and for rich people, you just have to wonder, like, again, the women were there looking like that because they understood their clientele to be a certain way. What will happen, right? What are the changes, and what will travel look like based on understandings of who their target clientele is when we have nothing but rich people flying?
well, certainly, once I have, at least $20 million to my name, I would expect that my flights would be full of very good-looking young men who a certain amount of inappropriate comments from me. I
Also,
mean,
you're right. Also hostile work environment, but I'm gonna let that one go. Oh god.
no,
Um,
I want to, make the poors, suffer just like I did. That'll be I'm joking. I don't really.
oh, okay, well, that again, that kind of brings us full circle. We started with basically flights and airline travel may go back to what it looked like before 1978 and the industry got deregulated. And as we just said, it looked a lot different, right? Flying looked a lot different in 1970, and it's already starting to look different it's gonna look different in 2027. So,
It might go back to being something only rich people do.
it
Be interested to see.
Yeah, it's trending that way right now, so we'll see if anything comes in to stop that from happening, but it's definitely, like, where we're trending, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah. Thanks everybody for being around and all of the great comments and for, thinking about airlines with us and airline travel. If you have any comments after, like, we'll post the video and
I'll be
drop.
posting soon as Substack has it processed, I'll post this video and feel free to share it. And if you've got a great idea for another topic, let us know. That medical one, I didn't realize that that was quite as it is. That might be something you look into.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Right.
The medical, since there aren't too many rich people, so I guess airlines are gonna get a whole lot smaller. I mean, honestly, right, it will change the way that the way that airplane looks inside, right? You think of, like, how there used to be all that space, there were, like,
Oh,
huge lounges and not that many seats, and it's gonna be a fewer people paying a lot more money, and yeah, like, it could look a whole lot different. So,
I
we'll
would
find out.
do that other than in the movies, but I'm sure it'll be great for a few people.
Right? I think, like, basically, that could be the end of every conversation, like, "It's gonna be really great for a few people."
Yes,
Yeah,
the United States of rich Americans is what we're
right.
becoming. Okay. Well, on that note, thank you, everybody,
Yep,
and we'll see you next week.
we'll see you next
Bye bye.
week. Bye.